What is up, friends? Welcome to episode 10 of the Map5 podcast, the podcast that asks, why is the proof in the pudding and who on earth put it there? My name is Jeff, and I'm here alongside Billy and a couple of guests. As I've got Green Nose Lafon to my divided by zero over there on my right. Thank y'all so much for joining us this week and filling the void while our other two are off on assignment.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Super excited to talk about some tier 2 Overwatch.
Also, I'm no longer Green Nose, so your introduction from a moment ago is entirely inaccurate.
Oh, well, we're going to start over. Let's just take it from the top.
Screen. Back to the intro screen.
Yeah, cut it.
No, we don't do that here. That's not how we roll. We
go off the rails all the time. So, I mean, for those of everybody that doesn't know you guys, LaFon and Divide, why don't you tell us about who you are and what you do for the scene?
Well, in alphabetical order, so Dividing, you go first.
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Dividing. Those of you who recognize me probably recognize me for the YouTube videos that I technically I was going to say used to make, but I actually have a video coming out tomorrow. So still do make for the scene for the Overwatch, mostly for the Overwatch League scene. But the video I have coming out pretty soon is actually more pertinent to the I'll just leak it here. It's more pertinent to the collegiate scene. So that's going to be a ton of fun when that comes out. But in the meantime, I have also been doing a lot of casting a lot of collegiate Overwatch over the last year with Esports EU and CENC for the most part. It's been a ton of fun getting to dip my toes into that water. And I'm having a ton of fun with it.
Hell yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. I guess I said alphabetical, so I have to go next. There's no other way around.
There's only two of you. Like it's...
no, there really is. Here,
you must talk now.
To the entire opposite of Dividing, I'm a caster. I'm LaFon. That's who I am.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. He's too modest, friends. He's too modest. He's a badass goat of a Chinese Contenders caster. So there you go. One of my favorites in the scene.
One of my favorites in the scene as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's talk about some news. Billy, why don't you start us off? What we got going on this week?
Yep. Starting off out the gates here, Belong Gaming Arenas is partnering with U.S. school districts to support scholastic esports programs, and in this, they have decided to partner with the Coffeyville and Grapevine Independent School District in the Dallas suburbs. Pretty affluent area there in Jeff's backyard. And also Williamson County School District in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, those of you that may recognize somewhat Belong Esports, they are a UK-based system that has really leaned into the schools, collegiate scene and high school scene in the UK. And now they're bringing their branding here. They have committed to at least these first two, but they were talking about, like maybe hundreds of centers throughout the US. They made that statement back in 2021. So, I mean, based upon the branding, I mean, Phil, our lovely Phil, was very involved when he was in England with that scene. So I'm definitely looking to see what they bring here to the US. It's almost like a Nerd Street Gamers kind of vibe that I'm getting out of them, where they're setting up these gaming arenas, these gaming centers. Like they've got one in St. Louis now. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're going to bring out of it. Vindex is their parent company, and it looks like, they're saying that they're trying to get in on the grassroots level and, trying to build up a unique opportunity to support schools and students involved in the esports space.
Yeah. More focus to the Overwatch side of things, of course. Belonging Arenas in the UK has a history of supporting Overwatch specifically, so that's something to keep an eye out for as we move forward as well. So definitely excited to see how they kind of liven up the area of this sort of grassroots area, as you kind of said just a moment ago.
Yeah.
Well, and what a precedent for the gaming arena to be partnering with a school district and to kind of provide something where normally, we see colleges that have a lot of funding that are building, $40 million arenas but that's, you have to be in a school, in a collegiate program that has that kind of funds available to them. So for a gaming arena like this to step up and partner with school districts, with public school districts, and there are more affluent areas, certainly the one here in the Dallas area is, but nevertheless, that is opening up opportunities and setting such a cool precedent that we could see grow moving forward into other partners trying to help support the scholastic side of things, and that's good for everybody. And we've all cast our fair share of collegiate and even some high school. I think this is something that will directly affect us. We'll start seeing the results of this, in the next year or two.
It would have been so easy for Belong Gaming to stay in kind of the collegiate area and maybe try and fill out some of the collegiate schools that maybe didn't have any gaming centers available to them. But the fact that they decided to go lower into the scholastic region is, I think, super awesome, because as of right now, a lot of high school esports is just kind of funded by the passion of any teachers and students that are currently into that right now. Like, there's a lot of colleges out there who are struggling to get funding for their esports programs. And if that's how it is in college, imagine how it is in high school right now. So having such a big company like Belong getting involved there is super cool. And I'm really excited to see how that'll develop over the next couple of months.
It's amazing stuff.
Yeah, moving on to how the tournaments themselves are created, though. It seems that Blizzard has somewhat streamlined the aspect of gaining a community or custom license if required, with a lead time of 21 days, according to the documentation on the Overwatch League website. Overall, a good move, I think, on the part of Blizzard. We'll have to see how it actually turns out, if it's going to be easier to put on more, engagements and tournaments at the community level. But at least early signs promising, at least from my point of view.
Oh yeah, this is a bonus. This just leads to more tier 3 events, and this is super important for these players getting to compete. Tier 3, it can be difficult to find ways to practice and to keep your skills sharp. So with this, we're just going to be getting more and more T3 tournaments, community tournaments, open invitationals, that kind of thing. It's just more Overwatch for everybody to get to participate in and sharpen their skills, which is just going to raise the bar.
The other thing to highlight is, of course, clarifies what tournaments are what, right? If you're a college program, a club putting on a tournament for your gaming club, then having a community license to be able to stream it and whatever is actually a good thing. It also means that we can see more custom tournaments come in that are more focused on the actual tournament aspect of it. So definitely at least clarifying which side of the line you're going to be on as a tournament provider, and I think that's only a good thing, right? Having organizers know where they stand with Blizzard is a good thing. But as I said, we'll have to wait and see how this actually turns out once we trend further in towards Overwatch 2, especially as the first beta wave is about to come to an end.
Indeed.
Moving forward, got a cool little tweet from one of our content creators in the scene, SVB. Received a lifetime achievement banner from tiltify for being one of their top fundraisers. Okay, so tiltify is a digital organization that allows you to find any kind of charity, like where you can go hunt and research and support charities from all over the breadth of the world and needs and humanitarian, what's the word I'm looking for? Just causes. They're just causes. You know, that's that difficult word that I was searching so deeply for. But jokes aside, this is awesome. So round of applause, SVB. You love to see content creators just putting their faces out there for good and to raise the quality of life for everybody across the planet and a multitude of needs out there. So, I mean, this just warms the heart, and we're happy to, spread some good news about the community.
Yeah, a special shout out to SVB for that. And it's also a good reminder for all of us watching at home, right? It's never too late to get involved with community outreach projects and programs. So it's a special shout out to SVB, of course, but a reminder, as I said, to everyone at home, it's a good thing to be active civically. And this is just another example of that.
Yep.
Yeah, super awesome. And staying on the topic of SVB, I wanted to talk a little bit about the streamer event that he put on just last weekend with the fantasy streamer Overwatch event that they put on with Samito, J3, Boger, and it ended up being Deku, not Somnus, in this tweet, captaining these teams that they auctioned off from like a pool of 20 different streamers. They all got like 1 million Blizz points or whatever he called it. I wasn't sure if SVB was allowed to call them Blizz bucks or not, but gave them 1 million of them, and they bidded on certain streamers to add to their team, which was a ton of fun. The SVB video about the auction was a ton of fun to watch. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't yet. At the end of the day, the winners of the event was Boger's team, which involved also Metro, Javion, Somnus, and A10, a pretty solid team from top to bottom there. And I just wanted to give a shout out to SVB there, because this is an event that we haven't really seen quite in this format in the sort of the streamer community. It's really cool seeing people like SVB not only have a lot of goodwill to get that tiltify award, but also being able to continually innovate and bring new events to the scene and continue to bring streamers together.
Yeah, this is hilarious. Like the clip we're showing, Samito basically, so they had $1 million or whatever to draft players, and Samito spent like 700 and some thousand of his 1 million on ML7, and it left him with only 4 players on his team. And so it was this whole thing where Boger kind of baited him. And I mean, and this is just a little 2-minute clip of it. And it's fantastic. I highly recommend going and checking it out. And SVB, I mean, my goodness, the guy has done so much to kind of keep content going throughout the drought, and now we're finally starting to get some showers here. Hopefully, we get the Mayflowers on the back of it, in the form of Overwatch 2 starting to release more and more content. But in the long drought, SVB was critical in keeping the ship afloat, and continues to innovate. Like you said, I mean, the creativity there was awesome, and it's worth a watch for sure. It's very entertaining.
Absolutely worth a watch, and keeping all the content going, especially going into Overwatch 2. Speaking of, we've got somebody that came from the Tier 3 and Tier 2 scene. We used to cast him back in the day in Get Good and other community tournaments, and then also in Contenders Open Division and Contenders Trials. Wub, now going to the Paris Eternal, the young DPS hero, finally making his way to the league. Could not be happier for them. He is super excited to be there. He wants to show the league what he's capable of. Lots of tremendous growth out of this player, everyone. I mean, if you have not seen him, go back and look at some of his performances. Nutty on a Tracer. Really good Genji, too, and especially with Genji in the place that they are at right now in the meta, as it were, could have an immediate impact on the Eternals roster.
Yeah, actually, amusingly for Wub, the criticism that was levied against them in Overwatch 1, having that diverse hero pool, which could have been a struggle, right? We often saw not being able to focus on one particular role, flex or hit scan, may end up costing him. In Overwatch 2, may actually be a boon heading into the Overwatch League. So a little turntables action for you there, and definitely something I'm interested to see how he kind of resolves against the best players in the world.
I'm just super happy for him to get his chance. I remember about this time last year, Wub said that he got really, really close to getting onto the Shock and just barely got beaten out by, I believe it was Narrow at the time. So at the time, Wub just seemed super dejected and ended up getting back onto American Tornado and just kicking butt on there for a while. And super happy to see him finally get to show us stuff on the biggest stage that Overwatch has to offer.
It's been a year of rookies. I mean, there've been so many rookies that have come in, and they are all starting to pop off. And I think Wub will be one of those. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be quite the proper Hydron level, but it can certainly compete. And it's one of the steel sharpened steels thing. I mean, that's one of my favorite moments in casting OD was a play Wub did on Tipple of Anubis with Genji just ripping the enemy to shreds, and it was just an exciting play, and it's one that stuck with me. Wub's just one of those kind of players that makes those plays that you remember. And I expect nothing but greatness going over to Paris. So yeah, no, always happy to see a T2 graduate move up into the big leagues. So round of applause for Wub. Claps all around.
All right, moving on to what could be the future of the Overwatch Tier 2 scene, though. We got to talk a little bit about Collegiate and a new announcement from the NACE Star League, obviously a scene I've been casting for some time over the last 2 seasons or so. They've now opened up a multi-tier level for their squads, an open and a varsity division, which will then be seeded by team skill rating into open 1, open 2, etc., varsity 1, varsity 2, etc. And obviously 1 team per school, a total number of schools not limited. That being said, I actually think this is a good change. One thing that is a big criticism of Collegiate is the fact that some of the best players in the world are playing against players that are just there for a little after-school gaming club, and the mismatch there can be quite unfortunate. So having those separations by skill level, I think, is going to allow more people to enjoy being able to play in these tournaments, and also provide a better product for the teams at the top end, as well as they're no longer just hammering 3-0s at some of those weaker schools.
That's what I'm looking for out of this, LaFon. I'm looking forward to seeing the level of competition move up. Yeah, we talked about earlier, steel sharpens steel. I think this is absolutely going to help build the collegiate scene, because we've seen, a bevy of kind of mid-lower tier groups coming through. I think NACE is actually going to pull people in with this open competition, and I think you're right. I think this could be the beginning, another beginning of this genesis of what collegiate esports means to the tier 2 scene and the path to pro. So, I mean, I'm definitely on board with what you're throwing out there. I think that this is going to be a fantastic addition to our scene, and we'll see if it actually pans out.
This is super important. I think there's a lot of students who could grow and rise quickly through the ranks. We've seen teams do this in other leagues, where they start off in the gold area, whatever their equivalent would be to the various leagues, the independent leagues that are out there, and then very quickly they improve and they build synergy and they start just shooting up through the ranks. And this is very important, because it opens up for everybody, and competition shouldn't just be for the top 500 players in the world. Like there's benefits for these students to be able to compete in esports, even if they are just diamond players. And so I think this is really important, and this is really good for everybody. And I'm looking forward to seeing this. NACE Star League puts out good work. Always enjoy their stuff. I've caught LaFon over there a few times this past semester in season, so I'm looking forward to seeing more of that and seeing that expanse. Am I up? I take it
You're
from a
up.
break
Yes.
in silence. That means I'm up. That's typically the sign. Yeah, sometimes there's literally a sign that you have to hold up to be like, Jeff, it's your turn.
I'm not drawing like Ethan usually does.
Just put a bunch of uwus on it or something. It'll work.
Right.
With a brig.
I'm on that right now.
All right. Yeah, just draw a brig with some uwus. It'll be right on point. We've got another awesome community event being put on by Natter. This one actually going on as we speak. First night started tonight. Let me pull up there we go. And I'll change some lower text just because I'm so good at this. I am top tier producer right here, S tier producer. But anyway, back to the point. This is our first community event that's happening on the beta. So we're getting a chance. I mean, this is 100+ teams, 128 teams, I think it ended up being.
I think they actually got 128 teams, at least at some point. I don't know if maybe a couple of them dropped out, but like at some point they had 128 teams signed up.
Yeah, and it says
Nuts.
2K prize pool on your screen. That got increased to 3K. They were able to raise some more money and add another 50% into that prize pool. And it's a lot of really good teams. It's all the teams that you expect to see from a Contenders tournament or from a top tier collegiate tournament. We've got a lot of those teams competing, and so this is going to be awesome. And there's teams in there that are doing it for fun. There's teams in there that they're looking for some serious competition, and it's kind of everything in between. So it's an awesome event, and really appreciate Natter putting this on. Map5 is actually doing some interviews similar to an event that we did before. So we're trying to do some behind the scenes stuff and interview some of those players so y'all get to see their faces and learn their personalities. So we're very excited to be a part of this event. And it'll be going on all weekend. So first night's tonight, but it will continue through Sunday. And I think we're going to run through some of the rosters that we might see appearing at this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, first off the gate, we're going to start with Regen coming back into the scene. They've had a regenerated roster, if you will.
I see what you did
one of
there.
our good friends, one of our friends here in the scene, Coach Whistle. We had an interview with them for the last ride. Also, manager Elijah, one of our favorite people in the scene. But you can see on your screen right there, our lineup coming in. Big one that stands out for me is Kumo, or otherwise known as Karapi. Definitely one of my fantastic picks for underrated supports in the scene. Also looking at React, having previously played on Redbird Esports. So, man, this is going to be a one that you need to be looking out for. We'll take a look and see what the tanks actually bring into this. But I mean, you've got a top tier support. You've got a top tier DPS. I mean, this could be a very good welcoming back into the scene tournament here for Regen.
I love what Regen does for the scene in that they've never really been like the tier 3 team. You never look at their roster and they go like, oh yeah, these are the ones that are gonna make it the trials when they enter into open division. But Regen has always done a really good job at sort of reaching deeper into the tier 3 pool, finding people with potential and giving them more of a platform to prove themselves. So many people who used to be on Regen would then leave Regen and go on to bigger teams and go on to do better things. So super, super proud of what Aqua and all of the people at Regen have consistently been able to do to kind of give a ton of players like their first really big leap into the tier 3, tier 2 scene.
Yeah, and just kind of quick footnote on that, they did also announce an academy team as well. So there's just to further elaborate on that point of giving those T3 players an opportunity to shine. They've got a second roster that they can help feed into the primary Regen roster. This is good stuff. I'm glad to see Regen coming back, or showing back up in the scene. I'm not sure they ever dissolved or anything, but we hadn't heard much out of them over the past couple months, so it's good to see them back. And then coming up next, I see I'm learning the pauses. I see the sign. Let's see that again. Wait, Billy, hold. There you go. You're up, Jeff Uwu. Perfect. Oh, hey, look, Phil made an appearance. Sorry about that.
I like the cat in the background on that wide shot of Billy. It worked out pretty well with the uwu there on the note as well.
Yes, it did.
I knew he was hungry, but not that hungry.
I had a chance to meet Phil in person, so I could be in disguise. We don't know.
I don't know. Have we ever seen you two in the same room? I don't know. The picture
actually,
I think was photoshopped. The picture was photoshopped.
Okay.
It's all a ruse. Anyway, we're off the rails. That one's for you, Phil. We went off the rails just for you. He's the one that usually keeps us on track. So when Phil's away, we just go hog wild. Speaking of, let's move on through another roster we're going to see this weekend here at the Natter Beta Clash. That is going to be the rebrand for Death Computer. The computer is officially dead, apparently. So this has been a tier 3 team that has looked really good throughout the offseason, particularly with some of the changes to the Path to Pro format, which we will discuss here in a little bit. I would expect to see this team be one of those that moves on into the Contenders tournament. They've made a big splash, and we'll see what they've got here with their rebrand coming out this weekend. I recognize a few of these players. A couple of them do come from the other Death Computer Squad. I know Hanbei I recognize from there, Snozlar as well. But others I'm still need to learn, and we need to get some more T3 community tournaments and get some open division going, and I'm sure these names will start becoming more and more household.
I mean, it's just time for them to step up and make their presence known here in the scene. But somebody that we know from the scene here joining Boston's finest, coming up here in the Natter X Community Bash. In fact, is one of my favorite players. He's so
just a goated name.
He's goated. He's played in Contenders as a 14-year-old. I mean, the kid's got some skills. I mean, he played for Susanoo back in the day, back in last Contender season, and now he's coming up with a new team. Lots of players that we all know here and love in the Boston's finest team. I mean, Infernal, great off tank, Forgotten and Depresso, absolutely deadly in the DPS lines, and Xcal. We'll see what their support line is. That's the one area that I'm kind of like, maybe not. But I mean, with Infected at the head, I think they might have a really good chance to get through at least the first couple opening rounds of this tournament.
Yeah, love to see. Of course, I'm always a massive fan of Infected, so super glad to see that Infected is sticking around, and with actually a lot of members of Bay State, I'm noticing, tend to make up a lot of this team. Infernal, Forgotten, Depresso, and Neb, all coming from that Collegiate team that a lot of people would say was top 5 in the nation this season.
Yeah, I think it's pretty undeniable they were top 5. It was consistent. It was very consistent, pushing on top 3.
Yeah.
Let's see. What's coming up next?
Yeah,
Divide, I think
in
you
the
got this
spirit of questionably needed sequels, we've got Best Two Buds coming in. Of course, we all know the miracle run that Best Buds made in Open Division a little bit back. Still hanging around in the scene, but with a little bit of a retooled roster. Of course, you've got Hammer, Caffeine, and Orion, a couple of the OG Best Buds members, but some new people coming in. For example, Garchomp and Still Kiwi coming in from the Converse University, a collegiate squad. There's actually a connection there because Hammer also goes to Converse, so I believe that's probably where that connection ended up coming in. And then also a couple people that I'm not as familiar with, like Drifter and Blob, that are going to be coming in to try and supplement Caffeine on that DPS role. So overall, I think some members in every role, we have a member that I think we're very familiar with in the tier 2, tier 3 scene, and then paired with maybe a member that maybe isn't quite as recognized. So Best to Buds, maybe you're going to be able to put together another fantastic losers bracket run over the course of the weekend.
I mean, looking at their roster, Hammer, we actually first saw, Jeff, if you remember this, back in the Summer Challenge for HSCL. And if this is the same Hammer, which I believe it is.
Oh, it is. Absolutely it is.
Yeah. I mean, definitely has a bright future here in our scene.
Well, and I mean, the whole team is named after Backstab Bud, who was on that same roster, who played DPS. Yes. And funny enough, there's no BSB on this current iteration of Best to Buds. So I guess just living on in spirit, although Caffeine did impersonate them for a small time during one of the tournaments.
We got jebaited.
Absolutely
there's no other way to put it. We got jebaited.
We should have known. Backstab Bud
Not
doesn't play
Caffeine. I mean, that's all I got to say here.
Wow.
There's a connection. See, it all comes full circle. Final note on this roster, we actually get to see Hammer back on main tank.
Yes.
That is what Hammer is known for playing. Played DPS for Converse Valkyries because it's a tiny school, so Hammer just kind of had to fill in where they were needed. But Hammer will be back in their primary role and lead the squad here. So best two buds, fun squad, definitely one to look out for. Always a good time.
And another one to look forward to. One of our favorite teams is Wisp. Wisp coming back with a updated roster. I had a chance to talk with Rocket yesterday in some of this content that's coming out for the tournament, for Natter's tournament. Probably one of the most well-spoken 17-year-olds I've spoken to in a long time. Just had a birthday, but Crowley King, Rocket Malthal, taking the place of Doom Godoa, one of our all-time favorite console players that has made it into the PC scene and has been performing at a massively good level. This team looks scary with Thunder and CJ and Vega. I mean, CJ and Vega alone are going to keep this team topped up very nicely. CJ is one of our favorite players in the support line, Jeff. I know that we've casted a lot with CJ and Vega. Rocket making his return. He got dropped off the team back a couple days before his birthday last month, and now he's back with the boys. So welcome back, Rocket. Welcome back to Wisp, and we'll see what Wisp looks like now with some of their key pieces back in place.
I don't know, but they got a sick roster build. They always have the best videos.
They do.
It's crazy to me that they've just had Malthal just sitting on the bench for them this whole time, just kind of chilling. Like, remember when he was just wrecking Contenders with Odyssey, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, this dude's amazing. I'm just waiting for Malthal to make like a triumphant return to the starting roster and just start wrecking people again.
He called himself a tier 2 bench rider. there's an infamous interview where the team won and they put him up for the interview. And he's like, yeah, I'm the best bench rider in tier 2. So, I mean, the kid can play. I mean, let's be completely honest here. Malthal can play. We just need to see him on screen. And I mean, he likes the Reaper a lot, but we'll see. You know, Reaper is actually coming to a good place here in Overwatch 2, so that may be why they picked him up, and he might actually get some play time. You know, it'll be King and Thunder having to fight Rocket for that starting position.
That's going to be an interesting fight. I mean, King is pretty nasty at his own right, and if I remember correctly, has a really nasty Tracer, which is kind of in Rocket's wheelhouse as well. So there's a little bit of overlap. As deadly as those 4 DPS are, there is a little bit of overlap in their hero pools. Yep. But I mean, that is an embarrassment of riches as far as their DPS line's concerned. So Wisp are certainly going to be a T2 team to keep an eye out for in the NA scene as we move through this season. I think from what we've seen of the rosters we've seen so far, this one has to be a front runner. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention Tinza. I don't know if you mentioned Tinza before and I just missed it doing prod stuff, but Tinza is another one of our, alongside Doom Godoa, comes from console, kind of in that same era. And is one of the biggest brains in Overwatch, like, period. Tinza was in no small way responsible for the GOAT's composition, for better or for worse. So, but it was that kind of big brain, like that, the kind of brain that can change the entire landscape of Overwatch. That's Tinza the Sage, and is head coach of this squad. So, a name you might not recognize, but I highly recommend keeping your ears open for and kind of plant that seed, because whatever Tinza puts his hands on, it's usually gold.
Yeah, true. And Phil BHP has just made sure to let us know that just because he's not here, we need to stay on time. So you're up, Jeff.
Oh, am I? Hold on.
Yes.
There you go. I just had to change that real quick. Okay. So we're going to continue moving through our rosters. That's going to bring us up to Alkaline. And, well, you know, here's the name that was recently mentioned. As we do have Doom Godoa playing for Alkaline in the Natter tournament. There we go. There's the right window. This is a slim roster. This is efficient. No more than necessary. None in abundance of riches here. This is everybody knows their place. Everybody knows who's starting. And this is going to be a good squad. Neptune and Moser in the back line. It's going to be awesome. Neptune is a veteran. Got a chance to speak with him this week. He's kind of like, yeah, I get asked to ring all the time just because I'm a veteran. And there's just not enough players that have been around. So, I mean, a very experienced squad. And just a cool one to keep an eye out for. Another one that I think will do very well through the weekend. Will probably make it final day. And more awesome artwork, which I'm just a huge fan of. I will always promote.
I love this. I love this
is gorgeous
poster. But I mean, to note, I mean, there's quite a few former members of Wisp that are on this squad. And you're wondering now, is this a complete break from the mother team, or are they just doing this for the community tournament? Because, like you said, it's a slim roster. Are they going to be back with Wisp moving forward once they get into open division or the qualifying tournaments? I think they have an automatic spot already. So, do they come back together? Do they enhance their roster even more, or do they keep the separated squads together? Maybe Tensa coaching both of them. #? Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely questions.
Maybe it comes down to how well Crawley plays this weekend. Maybe if it doesn't go quite as good as they want, they go back to J-Bub's like, hey, listen, man, come back, please.
I mean, with how good Doom Godoa is on Doomfist, though. I mean, could you convert Doom Godoa into a sites or a map-specific Doomfist player? Because his rollouts are some of the best in the game on Doomfist. Man, could you see Doom Godoa as a main tank player?
I mean, there is a lot of conversation, obviously, about the meta and how Overwatch 2 is kind of trending into things. It's going to be, sort of a eggs in one basket kind of situation, because the Doomfist gets shut down, then all of a sudden you've got no more answers. So we'll have to see on that front once the games actually start.
Well, and that kind of has already happened today, right? That's already as far as Overwatch League, where people have already kind of started to figure out the anti-Doomfist strats. So what worked weekend 1 is already starting to show some vulnerabilities. So, of course, that's going to trickle down into T2. But if anybody could pull it off, Doom Godoa is certainly one to do it.
You're still up, Jeff.
Next roster.
Speaking of fantastic roster art.
Yes. Now, this is one with players I don't recognize a whole lot of players in here. I recognize a couple, but this was just too good. So we're not showing you this one as a championship contender so much as this is going to be a fun roster, and I hope they make it on stream. This is the Circus. And I mean, there's just everything about this is just amazing. I don't even know what to say about this. I love all the little icons that they use.
Yes.
And of course, this image is fantastic. If you guys lose to us, you are terrible. I expect this team to be extremely memey.
Look, I made it onto Twitter, Mom. That's me whenever I play DPS right there.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Loud. Hey, it's okay. It's okay. I'm gonna go cry now.
All right,
we got fun vibe.
Yeah, we got one last roster, but we don't have a Twitter post for him, so we're just gonna.
We do have a Twitter post for him.
Oh, you did find a Twitter post?
Yeah, I did find the Twitter post for Pirates in Pajamas here, which is, I think, actually a really interesting mix of both Contenders veterans and top tier 3 talents alike. They are led, of course, by Icy, Revival, and all them. And of course, you also have players like, as it loads up here, you've got players like, I believe, Seekers on this team, yes, and Nas and Lep, all of which have played together in the past, but you also have Zera, Peace, and Pink, 3 tier 3 level players that have shown a lot of potential on the teams that they've played on in the past, like Zera on Bearclaw. Pink played on Regen for a little bit, and showed a lot of potential. So I'm actually super excited to see how these newer players sort of slot into this roster of tier 2 veterans. And again, of just some fantastic roster art.
Yeah, this is gonna be a fun roster for sure. And actually has a lot of skill.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, like you got Pink and Zera coming over from Bearclaw, got picked up, and we had a really nice interview with Icy. So keep an eye out for that. He does a nice rundown of this squad. Is very proud of the squad that has been put together here, and so rightfully so. And so, yeah, we'll keep an eye out for Team Pip this weekend. They may or may not form an actual squad going into Contenders. We'll see if this squad sticks around. But there's a lot of potential here. I think Pink is one I'm really keeping an eye on. Pink was outstanding on Bearclaw. Flex support, I believe, was one of the reasons they did as well as they've done over this past offseason. And NA flex supports are far and few between of that caliber. And I think Pink is one of those that we're going to see rise to that Luke Mino and Landon style levels of 2021. I think Pink could be one of those in 2022. I
wholeheartedly agree with that, my friend. Pink might be the one on the rise that everybody needs to keep their eyes out on. So, I mean, this is going to be a fun tournament, notwithstanding. There's going to be a lot of fun. There will be some meme moments, I'm sure, but man, I can't wait to go watch some of this that's going on after we get done with our podcast, because I mean, it's content for our scene, it's community involvement for our scene, and we're going to get a look at some of these Path to Pro players, kind of getting a chance to show their chops out here. So, I mean, it's the first big one that I can think of that's been on T2, that's been here in the T2, T3 scene. So Natter, once again, coming through clutch here for the Path to Pro system for all of us.
Yeah, that's I think that's all the rosters we got for you.
Yep.
I mean, that's some good news though. Like,
I'm sorry if we didn't go over yours. Oh man, my camera. My camera just really. I don't know what's going on.
That is a car piece.
Whoa.
Everybody find the art.
Now
They
I'm
need to find the
frozen. What
signal.
the heck? My Matrix connection.
We don't chill NFTs around here. You're gonna have to get rid of that. Like, who do you think we are?
There we go.
Oh, there. Okay. Oh my goodness.
All right, so let's move on to the big news of the week. The news that we really need to break down. This is monumental, and it is, of course, the announcement of the Overwatch Path to Pro format that we're going to see for 2022. Now, this has been pretty controversial since they dropped it 5/9, so 4 days ago they dropped this information, and there's a lot to digest here. It's not super long as far as what they told us, and is really, I feel like there's more information that we need, but there are some really important factors here that I think are worth a good discussion.
Yeah, I think off the top of my head, like right away, the first thing that we know is the pricing for every region, right? That breakdown has kind of gone through. Beyond that, the format hasn't been cemented fully for 2 full regions. Both China and South Korea do not have their full setup done for Contenders proper. I believe only South Korea has their open division format revealed. So, or at least of those 2 regions, the NA and EU also have their open division format expanded as well. So beyond the fact that it was announced, it's sort of an early look at like, hey, we're still not quite done, but at least Contenders is happening this season.
I think that's a huge announcement. I mean,
yeah,
we were all sitting on pins and needles waiting for it to come down. I mean, we were just been having our ears to the pavement, trying to figure out something to go on, see what our Path to Pro system is going to look like now with Overwatch 2 coming in. And I mean, looking at 64 team up to 32 from 32 previously in open division. That's a big change. That's going to allow more people to come in. So, I mean, there's going to be more competition, more sharpening of the steels we always talk about. I think that this is absolutely the right move here. It's not only going to do that, it's also going to provide on our end, casting scene. It's going to let some of the new faces come into the scene and get their chops working with some of these higher caliber teams. Sometimes we have some washes in the opening rounds as they have to traverse the open division landscape, but still, I think for teams and I think for talent, I think that this is a happy medium that's going to go through for us. I think this is going to be nothing but good for our scene because, like I said, development has to happen somewhere. It has to happen for the players, and now we're going to be able to see a little bit for the talent as well. So this is a huge one, one that I really do embrace fully.
I'll have to had my first concern up, though, for Open Division that we haven't addressed is that Open Division is going to be on Overwatch 1. It is not going to be Overwatch 2 for the Open Division aspect. Moving into the Contenders side of things, though, that's when Overwatch 2 comes to play. So all of a sudden, you have a power dynamic that is not in favor of the teams coming in from Tier 3. It already favors the team that were in the upper echelons. And, I mean, to a certain extent, yeah, you have to kind of admit that if you're in Tier 2, you should have the benefit of being able to practice on Overwatch 2. That being said, I think the quality of gameplay is going to be definitely, to put it in caster speak, interesting in some of those head-to-head matchups when you consider the fact that open division teams have to have 6 players. They have to have that 2-2-2. Then they move into Overwatch 1, or sorry, they move from Overwatch 1 into Overwatch 2, and all of a sudden, all that conversation has to change. It's a new style, it's a new game. You have to bench one player. It's frankly a nightmare.
It's gonna be so awkward.
It's totally
to try
different
and
too,
do it.
right? Like, it's definitely gonna be awkward.
It's basically a new. I mean, yeah, it's basically a new game. It's a whole different way to think about the game. The absence of the tank, the absence of CC and shields is going to make the way that people approach the game significantly different. So having to switch gears from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2 so quickly, and then of course have that very uncomfortable conversation with your tank players and be like, listen, which one of you is sitting out? There's obviously still a place for a main tank specialist, off tank specialist on an Overwatch 2 roster, but it does seem like most teams in Overwatch League seem to, for the most part, like to focus on one person in general, just to make sure that the synergy doesn't get messed up. So it's probably going to see the same general thing in Open Division and Contenders as well. So it's just going to be really weird for Open Division teams to deal with.
Yeah, I'd also like to hammer home one other point, and that is scrim specifically, right? Teams, the scrim pool is already limited in the tier 3, tier 2, and tier 1 scene by necessity of the fact that just aren't that many teams at each of those levels. And that pool is getting diluted even further with half that roster or half those teams just no longer able to scrim with you at all, as they won't have access to the Overwatch 2 client. And reminder, the beta does end. We're already getting waves of the beta. And so this first beta wave is going to be ending sometime, I believe, at the end of this month. So that's also another thing to highlight. Yeah, it's a consideration that I think we are definitely going to have to account for when we consider some of these teams. And I would highly suggest that coming into those games, we may have to put a little bit of an asterisk on the performance of the Open Division teams, simply because they may just not have the practice they need to perform to the level that they're capable of.
Agreed.
And the teams that are scrimming on Overwatch 2, well, which quite a few of them aren't going to want to go back and scrim on Overwatch 1. Like, you're not going to get crosstalk between those. And it's not so much, I mean, on top of, okay, I don't want to say it's not so much, on top of the complication of the roster itself, and yeah, main tank and off tank can be viable. We see a lot of Overwatch League teams who kept a main tank and an off tank and are playing them, according to their map and the strategy. But it's the feel of the game. The feel of the game is so drastically different. The strategy is so drastically different that making that jump, I mean, you have to be an expert in 2 games to push up through, Open Division into Contenders. Now, granted, that's a bit of a tangible form. Like, they're kind of one and the same almost at this point, just because it's like one giant tournament, it feels like. But yeah. And that's where we're gonna have a 64 team Contenders tournament. So that's something I would like to kind of go back and address on in a moment. But with that said, these Open Division teams are going to be at a huge hindrance for, I mean, if you're good at Overwatch 1 doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be good at Overwatch 2, and to be an expert in both is almost impossible. Now, the flip side, there's logistically, what other option is there? I mean, the only other option is that Contenders is played on Overwatch 1. I would say that is a shite side worse. Like, that would be even worse to have the entire Path to Pro system playing on Overwatch 1 as opposed to it being split down the middle. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think that Contenders is in a no-win situation logistically, and that is the unfortunate truth. Shout out to the halo effect that's going around my forehead there. But the truth of the matter is, it is, as much as I will criticize some of the choices that were made here because of how difficult they're going to be for some of the players, I feel for the tournament organizers here for Contenders, because they don't have a game to give to the players playing the Open Division circuit. And the truth of the matter is, we don't necessarily have all the tools in there to run Open Division as well. So Contenders needs to be on Overwatch 2, because that is where the players are being scouted for Overwatch League. And you can't scout Overwatch 1 into Overwatch 2 OWL, but I mean, it really is a tough place for everybody here in the tier 2 scene.
I mean, it's just growing pains.
Absolutely, yeah. It's growing pains, and I agree with that. The other thing is that it's going to be single elimination until you get to top 8, so you only get one chance to prove your worth. There's no losers bracket as we used to have before in Open Division.
Yeah, that's like a whole other conversation. Like, I don't know. I gotta get braced. I need some caffeine. I need some tea if we're gonna get into that conversation, because I think that may be the most controversial of it all.
Yep.
Is running single Elim basically through the entirety of the top 64. That is brutal. I mean, I heard the example of and Bear Claw is kind of falling apart at this point, but. If you had, Bear Claw, going out in the first round, because, Bear Claw goes up against, oh my gosh, I'm totally brain farting. Who was the other, like, big T3? Is it Solar? Not Solar. Solar's is more T2. Which one?
GeForce?
Yeah, GeForce. Thank you. Exactly. Yeah. So imagine you have GeForce and Bear Claw going up against each other early, and you're losing.
Oh.
You're losing a team that deserves to be a lot higher up in the bracket because it's a single Elim format and they happen to meet each other early in the bracket. So like that in of itself has definitely caused a lot of controversy. And again, I got to play devil's advocate here a little bit, because if you're running a 64 team tournament full double Elim, you're going to burn everybody out real fucking fast.
Yeah, my thought on it is they probably, well, obviously this is just me speculating, but they might have looked at Valorant, a scene that is having a lot of success right now, and how they try and whittle down from their kind of open scenes into their champions and challengers tournaments, and try and whittle down to those teams. And they do a kind of a similar thing where they bring everyone in like a 128 person bracket or something like that, and they run single elimination until they get down to like 32, and then they run double Elim from there. So I think that might be where they're getting the idea from, and trying to put something similar together, because that format has worked out well for the Valorant community. I do think two things. One, making it from top 8 is a lot. It's a lot of whittling down to doing just single elimination. It adds a lot of variance into the bracket, just based off of if you had a bad day during the single elimination day, and it's a lot grindier. And two, you already had to get through open division to get into the contenders bracket in the first place. Whereas in Valorant, you are just entered into the open bracket, and then you try and go from there. So it just feels like maybe you're not quite getting your fair shot.
I think you're getting cut out. I think you're getting cut out. I mean, I think their cutoff was way too sharp. Top 8. I mean, you're thinking about what 4 rounds before you get even a sniff of the upper round. So I think I think I agree with you on that dividing. I think that putting it at like even the top 16 would be a lot, I think, fairer. But they're trying to keep it in a notice of brevity, trying to keep it as non-burnout as possible. But, man, I just think it's too sharp of a cutoff for teams to go out like a Bear Claw, like a GeForce, that definitely have shown themselves in the offseason as being worthy, as taking down Titans of T2, or at least giving them a run for their money. So that's the big part for me, is the fact that, how are they going to seed them too? That's the other big question. How are they seeding these teams? Because I have not seen anything on how are they seeding these teams, because it's going to come down to that. Are they going to take off-season performances into account? Because GeForce and Bear Claw had pretty good off seasons taking on some of these tier 2 teams. Did they always win? No, but there were a couple of upsets in there. So I think that seeding definitely has to be something that's addressed in this open division tournament. Are they going to make the top tier teams also play into it, or is there going to be like a reserve top 4 for who were in contenders last season? That's my big eye test right now, is how does the seeding work, and where do they go from it?
They announced that the 8 that are already in contenders will be the top 8, and they're already invited to the contenders tournament. So we do know that. Yeah. So there's if you made contenders the previous season, and I imagine this will continue through. So the first one has been announced. They're calling it the Summer Series. So we're getting rid of like 2021 Season 1, Season 2. They're naming it kind of like they did in OWL over the past 2 seasons, including this season. So we're going to have the Contenders Summer Series will be our first one. That is going to be from July to August. The specific dates have not been announced yet. We just know it's July to August is kind of the time frame on that. I imagine that will continue. So if you place top 8 in Summer Series, I imagine those are going to be the top 8 going into whatever the fall equivalent is going to be, and you retain that seeding going in. Now, going back to the number of teams, this is, I think, another really interesting point, because it's not just about the seeding. You have players from the top 32 teams of the upcoming tournament will be provided access to the PvP beta and will be eligible and encouraged to participate in the Summer Series, our first Contenders event of the year. This is odd phrasing. Like,
because it's not an automatic feeding from Open Division to Contenders.
Exactly.
It is technically an open bracket in the sense that you have to sign up again to kind of get access to it. They in fact mentioned that you do need to sign up, or registration will open during those dates. I believe it's June 27th is when it starts. Registration starts for the Summer Series
through July 8th. Correct.
Yes. So and then your performance in Open Division will the performance in Open Division will define how you're seeded into Contenders, into the Summer Series. Another thing to highlight is that you will need three. I believe a minimum of 3 players from your Open Division roster to be on this roster to have that eligible seeding points coming into the summer series. So all in all, it is not the Contenders of yore. You do not have that feeding from Open Division into Contenders, into the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. It is now, as I said, an open and sort of more an open bracket where you do have to register and kind of play out, and a very different shift from what we've kind of expected Contenders to look like over the last couple of years.
Very much so, and it makes me wonder where the other 16 teams are coming from. I mean, do you not have to get top 32? If you make top 32, then you're eligible and encouraged to join, quote unquote. But there's still 16 teams unaccounted for in this layout. You have top 8 from Contenders are automatically granted seeding. Top 32 move on. So out of 64, okay, so that's 24 teams actually that are still 24 spots that are available, that they have just kind of been very vague about how they get in. I mean, so is just a random team from Open Division can just turn around and sign up for Contenders anyway? So that's another
makes me wonder if you can buy a spot.
See, and that shit had better go away.
Yep. That shit needs to be out the effing door right away. And Flutie's in chat with us right now. Thank you for coming and saying hi to us again. She says, want the top 32 from Open Division to play each other down to 8, and then combined with Contenders in a double Elim 16 bracket or 16 team bracket.
See,
I like that take.
That makes sense to me. You're basically expanding on what we had last year. So instead of 8 teams in trials, you have 32 teams in Contenders trials.
Yep.
And that
would be fun.
It feeds more than 2 or 4 slots that you would actually, feed 16 of those 32 teams make it into Contenders. Or even 8 and 8, even, top 8 move on to face the top 8 that were previously there, or something of that nature. Because that's another just kind of random note. Like, it seems an unanswered part of things. And I agree. There's Flutie saying here in chat, Redbirds playing a 64 seed is not fun for anybody. And I mean, that's 100% correct. And that's going to be in a single Elim format as well.
Yep.
I mean, there's still more details that need to be revealed as well. My gut reaction, my initial take when I saw the news is, it's an announcement. I need a lot more details because there's a lot of questions I have that just aren't being answered yet. And yes, I mean, we've only really touched on NA and EU. We have not even looked at Contenders in China or South Korea, 2 regions that don't have details given out yet. So we're not even sure how those are going to look. And in terms of the global reach of Overwatch and Overwatch 2, there's certainly a lot of questions for that for those 2 Eastern regions, for me anyway.
Was there anything about, I guess there is something about ANZ, the Australia-New Zealand region, lesser prize pool for them, but not really any specifics coming in. We see, I mean, I guess.
I think all of this information applies to everybody but China, from the way I'm interpreting it.
Yeah, there's like 0 about China in here whatsoever.
China will likely, the Chinese region will likely have their announcement done on their own internal channels before we get them here on the Western side of things. But regardless, it's still an awkward format. And I think specifically with South Korea, it's even more awkward where there's a history of tournament into tournament play. In fact, the longest standing tournament into tournament play in Overwatch. So they're radically changing out that look as well. And we may end up seeing some even more awkward stories coming out of Contenders Korea with regards to that, especially, we've got some fantastic stories about teams that have been underdogs performing extremely well. So, from that lens, I'm not sold on it in South Korea. We'll see how well they're able to make it work. But like I said, those are my early and initial reactions. And I still don't envy the tournament admins for Contenders because it's tough. It's a tough place to be in.
Okay, I've got to ask what is probably the most important question. How the heck do we cut off between tier 3 and tier 2 now?
Top 8.
We don't.
Where do we decide?
No, it's top 8.
I mean, it's top 8.
That's kind of my interpretation of it right now. Is your top 8 are your tier 2 teams. That's what it would be previously. The top 8 performing teams are the teams that you would see playing in a Contenders proper season. So that's my interpretation. Who knows? Like it's still amalgamous. Like who knows? I mean, and where's that? The tier 3, tier 4 cutoff is even more strange because previously tier 3 was kind of what would they consider it, like top 16 OD. It depends on who you talk to, but kind of top 16 OD was considered tier 3 because there's a pretty steep fall off from the top end open division teams, at least previously. Here, let me there we go.
Yeah.
At least previously, there's a pretty steep fall off after top 16 OD into the rest of the landscape. And so that was kind of considered tier 4. And so, I mean, some of that is definitely up to your own personal point of view, but I think we've got to be prepared for the rules to change. I mean, just like we have to change the way we think about the new game, I think we're going to have to change the way we think about the Path to Pro landscape a little bit here.
There's something that Flutie said as well, Jeff, and lafon, and dividing up. Making it all one tourney does make it impossible to sell your spot. So that, may be the only way that we can combat this. And you can't sell off your entire roster and bring in a whole new roster. You have to keep 3 of the original team members. So that also negates, kind of worming your way through the landscape here, like you would see before, like an open division team would, do well, get into trials, and then all of a sudden you see a completely different roster coming in. So I think that that's a big change right there. Flutie, for those that don't know, Redbird esports guru and director there. And I love, and coach. I just gave her an upgrade then. Because I'm not Flutie.
She's after Fluke's job.
After Captain Kirk's job.
Yeah, after Captain Kirk's job.
David. Watch out, David.
But yes, Flutie, very passionate person about Path to Pro system here. So definitely value her opinion on all this. And I agree with the fact that the buying and selling of spots was a big deal. It's something we do really need to get rid of, and that's the reason we're so adamant about that. Is it kind of gatekept the NA talent to where there's a lot of talent that wasn't moving up, and it was kind of rotating through the same players. And a lot of those players are very talented, very good, and deserve some real shots, but you kind of were blocking off other teams from moving up. So, yeah. You just made me laugh in the middle of my thought. Thank you for that. But my point has been made. Now it wasn't as big a deal in the other regions. Yeah. So like that wasn't as impactful in Korea in particular. We know from experience with Ocean, who's owned a team that participated over there, and how that went down. There are a lot more. I'm not sure what the right word is, but it's making sure that the people who are there deserve to be there. Like they're a lot more selective about that, and take a lot more pride in participating in that. I think it's a big deal. It's a bigger deal, I think in Korea to be on a Contenders team. I mean, it carries more gravity with it.
But I don't know what the Chinese scene is like, but they pay their players a salary in the tier 2 scene in Korea, and we don't do that here in North America. As far as I know, the only thing that they get is when they
Yes.
win tournaments and stuff like that. They're not paid a monthly salary. So that's the big difference. It's a big difference in the culture of building your teams. You're going to retain the talent if you're paying them a monthly stipend, even, even if it's only like $400. That's halfway to rent for a lot of places in Korea.
I mean,
Because I've been looking at going to Korea and seeing what the scene is like there. So here in America, if you're paying your players, they're going to stay with your team. They're not just going to flake out and go to another team if you're not doing so well. That's the big difference. Is that Koreans? I mean, you heard Ethan, you heard Ocean. He paid his players. They had a monthly salary. I think that needs to happen here. I mean, because they're making money. They're winning these tournaments. These players should be getting paid a monthly stipend to perform, especially at the university and collegiate level. There's scholarships out there. I know they're getting paid with that. But I mean, if the NCAA is going to start paying basketball and football players, then I think the esports scene also has to do the exact same thing and pay these student athletes that are representing your university, representing your college, representing your brand, getting your name out there. There has to be money for the esports athletes as well. Because you know how passionate I am about this.
Yeah. That is a topic for a whole other day. And we're not even, the collegiate scene is way more organized and takes care of their players more than the player run organizations. And that's kind of the point that's being made by Fleeta right now in chat, is that it's player run orgs. Or player run teams versus actual organizations, which what you see in Korea, what you see in China are actual organizations.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversations that need to happen around the NA scene and sort of the monetization of it. That's obviously a very large topic that I think exceeds the scope of the Path to Pro announcement from this week specifically. Definitely a conversation needs to happen. I will also say, looking at China and Korea, there is going to be a very big shift, a shakeup from the last couple of seasons. There are teams that are bowing out. Obviously, we have the recent news from Contenders China that a couple of the academy teams will not be as they were. I think Chengdu is specifically the most notable of that. But beyond that, there's a lot of discussions that I think this announcement is going to bring forward. And frankly, time will tell if it is something that is going to be a positive or a negative change in the outlook of what the future of Tier 2 looks like.
I think it's undeniable is it will be a big change. It's not going to be business as usual. And rip Team Chaser. That's whatever happened. It seemed to all go downhill so fast. Like it was just overnight. There went half the squad. Leave doesn't have a spot now anymore, and Team Chaser is gone. Like it was just like, what? What on earth just happened over there? But anyway, again, talk about a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
Do you have any insight on that? Can I pry for insight for the one of us that's actually cast Chinese contenders?
I mean, the specifics of it are somewhat unknown, even sure. To some of the players or some of the people that kind of work the region, and I would give the full information over to probably one of my other former coworkers in Kenobi, who would be a little bit more informed of those specifics. But it was a surprise to everyone, I think, at least how quick and how decisive the changes were. But definitely some interesting stories there. I don't have any specific information, unfortunately, for how or why it went down.
I don't know either. So it is unfortunate. I'm curious to see how the Chinese scene shakes up because they had kind of just propelled up to greatness over the past 2 years. Between 2021 and 2020, suddenly the Chinese scene was being taken very seriously. 2020 was the dominant scene, had the dominant team in the world in Team CC, who went on to go compete in Korea. That was the only spot that was bought in Korean Contenders for 2021 was Team CC moving over. And that's after they beat everybody in Korea in Gauntlet. And I mean, half their players got picked up for OWL, but it's a shame to see that scene suffer like that. I mean, it's the not NA Contenders, but Contenders is important for all regions, for all parts of the world to be strong and to feed the pipeline that heads into OWL and to create this amazing talent. So it's important for us to keep an eye on China and at least be informed as much as we can what's going on over there. And I mean, cross our fingers that they bounce back, and otherwise they're going to turn into to what happened in NA and all of them start dropping out. And anyway.
Yeah,
we kind of got off on a tangent here, but I think it was an important tangent. So
Yeah, my final point with Contenders China specifically is I wouldn't ascribe a lot of these same reasons as I would to some of the other regions. It's a massive socioeconomic issue that transcends just Contenders. It is a truly, it's more nuanced than I make it seem, at least in this quick minute that I gave over it. So I would be careful drawing too many conclusions from what we just noticed here in this announcement. As I said, it's the initial aspect of it. I still want to see how what really resolves from sort of this announcement and how we kind of come from here. But certainly mild concern is how I'm looking at it right now.
I think that's justified and wise.
Yeah.
I think I echo that.
I think that's a general feeling.
Oh, well, all right. Any other thoughts on this announcement? I felt like there was a lot to unpack here. I think the final thoughts is kind of, we're still left with more questions than answers.
Yeah. That's kind of where we're at. There's a lot that we don't know.
Is it really?
Is
it really a Contenders announcement if you aren't left with more questions than answers, though?
You know what? That's valid.
You're so right.
That's valid.
Right.
You know what? But we get Contenders though.
We do get
I'd like to
Contenders.
know that.
It will be on Overwatch 2. Let's go. It'll be hype.
The summer series logo is pretty hype too. I like it. Good job on that one.
We're trying to pull positives where we can out of this.
I like the color choices.
Woo!
All right. Well, I kind of feel like we've expanded this one as much as we can without more information, but we will certainly get it to you. As soon as we know, we are chomping at the bit to learn more. June 27th is going to come up pretty quick. That's when the registration period starts. And I can't help but feel like they're going to have more information out before they start asking for teams to sign up for this thing. So we're bound to get more news in the next month.
5.5 weeks out. That's the timeline we're kind of working with.
Straight up. But with that, I think we should go ahead and move on to our T2 tweet of the week. What do you think, friends?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, all right. I'm gonna actually do the lower banner or the lower third on time. All right, I'm not gonna do it 20 minutes like I normally do.
Proud of you here.
Thank you. S tier producer. S tier producer. All right, and your T2 tweet of the week comes from Get Quaked On. This is directly in response to the announcement that we have just spent the past however long talking about. Get Quaked On is LFT. In case you were wondering, peaked at level 4 endorsement. Still level 4 endorsement. Gold deaths in every game. I relate to this so much. No trade kills via rollouts. Diamond border. I know this is very important to all you Contenders teams out there. Has watched every car queue video. This is looking like a stellar pickup. If you didn't already know Get Quaked On, the Doom 1 trick, then has some sick Doom montages. No hit scan needed. I hit scan the far back to spawn as Doomfist. There you go. Your T2.
I think the most impressive part of that is the level 4 endorsement. I've never gotten that. I can barely stay at level 2.
I've hit three.
Just play more tank. At least in Overwatch 1, people are so appreciative if you play tank.
It might be
play
a
more
relentless
tank.
toxicity. I don't know. I just throwing that one out there.
Whoa.
It's not a place to be here. Listed, putting a question mark every time you take down the support's backline. It's just a match chat's right there. What am I supposed to do?
It's just so accessible.
The E and the Z have been worn off of your keyboard. They're just blank now.
I have actually, as a keyboard nerd, I have replacement E's and Z's. Thank you very much.
There you go. There you go. I should have known.
Love it.
I should have known. All right. Y'all, thank you so much. Thank you so much for filling in for us this week. Look forward to having you back. These two, our caster friends here, aren't like other guests. These are people that I'm hopefully I can entice to come back again and help fill the void, and we can kind of rotate out people, and that way when we have somebody go on assignment, go on secret mission somewhere, we still have some smart people to come in and help talk about Overwatch. Like that's what we do. So anyway, all that to say, thank you so very much for being here, y'all.
Thank you for having me.
I had a ton of fun.
Awesome.
I'll return Phil after the episode's over.
Oh, so
Okay.
you have Phil.
Oh wait, my bad.
That was not a scary laugh at all. Oh my goodness.
I know Darth
Now,
Lafon. That's
Darth Lafon.
Darth Lafon.
Hey, gotta live up to the thumbnail. What can I say?
I should have just named the episode Darth Lafon with no explanation. That should have just been the name of the episode. All right, friends. We're going to go ahead and close it out. Big special thanks to Glitch City for letting us use her remix of the King's Row song in our animation. And thank y'all so much for hanging out with us. It's been episode 10. We made it 10 episodes deep. I didn't think we would make it this far. We're still going. There's more to come. We'll see you next week. Thanks, y'all.
Hi, guys. Love y'all.